Welcome everyone to S1E1, the show where each week we watch the first televised episode of a different sitcom and rate it just on that episode alone, forgetting any knowledge we may or may not have about future episodes. This week we'll be talking about Third Rock from the Sun. Third Rock from the Sun went 139 episodes over 6 seasons on NBC. Today we're going to be talking about the first episode, which was called Brains and Eggs, which debuted January 9th, 1996. So to get things started, I'm your host, Jay Gags. With me, as always, the guys, Gordo, Joe, Ferg, and a returning Nick back from assignment. How's it going, guys?
Heyo.
Hello.
Cleveland is a felonious charge away.
All right, so to start things off, let's get into it. Who has and hasn't watched Third Rock from the Sun up until the recording of this episode?
Normally, it's like, oh, I remember a few things, but like I remember the pilot. I think I've seen Third Rock all the way through and never the pilot. So this is very different for once.
I obviously knew what it was, but I would venture that I haven't seen more than 3 episodes of this show in my life.
Yeah, I feel like I've watched.
I remember a few episodes from syndication, but I think that's where I would have seen it, was syndication. Never watched it.
You know what's weird? I remembered the apartment set like board for board. Like, I don't know why that one stuck out to me, but I remembered the set very well, more than anything else.
You know, it's a show that I definitely watched a handful of in its day, but I really don't remember much about it. Like, I remember the premise, and that was kind of all that stuck in my mind. And so, I mean, I really did kind of go in fresh with all this stuff. Gordo, you actually recommended this one, so I assume you actually watched it?
Yeah, I seen this. Like all you, I did see this in syndication. I remember it being on, I think it was Fox, like before The Simpsons or before like at 6:30. So it was on kind of at dinner time.
I got NBC written down.
No, but
in syndication.
It was in syndication. I believe it was on Fox, or it was around the time of Seinfeld on Fox. When Seinfeld was on at 7 and Simpsons were on at 7:30. It was kind of on at like 6:30. It was because I know it was on, I think, before like Jeopardy or something like that. And I remember my grandmother would always have it on.
Hour of television.
Yes, but yeah, we would always have it on. So yeah, I've seen it.
All right, well, let's get started. Starting right from the intro. Intro is just some surf rock playing, and then you kind of have the CGI animated, solar system thing going on where they're just showing you outer space. So at that point, not much to tell you. I mean, you just assume it has something to do with space. And I don't know, I like the music. I mean, any thoughts from the intro?
I thought it was pretty plain and probably made pretty quickly. Like, I think part of this show's appeal is they want to shock you a little bit with the premise, and maybe starting off with the song that doesn't really give you much kind of helps that. It doesn't lead you into it at all.
Do we know why, or if it changes throughout the seasons I'm not sure. The rest of the show?
It's always the song.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it's the same.
Yeah. I mean, to my recollection, it's always the same. And I don't know if, Joe, that's necessarily the thing going on, but it was like, sometimes it's just a matter of keeping it simple and not overthinking the intro. I mean, they're just giving you an upbeat, fun vibe, and then they take you right into the show. It's not too long. And what else are you going to do? Just show clips of their faces and put their names?
Can I also say, too, that when this was on and watching it, do you guys know how long it took me to figure out that Third Rock from the Sun was Earth?
Oh, really?
I'm with Gordo.
Like, it took me
as long as it took. I'm sure Gordo and I were in class one day and someone told us both, and we went, oh, because I didn't know for a super long time.
Yeah, because I remember being like Third Rock from the Sun. Like, I always thought like, oh, that's a cool name for a show. And then, years later, I was like, oh, Earth is the third planet from the sun. So duh, with the third rock from the duh,
My very eager mother just served us 9 pies.
That's how you know what planet.
That's how you remember the order of the planets.
Oh,
Mars, I don't remember that at all. I did not pay attention to school.
Don't remember that at all.
Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn,
Uranus.
More importantly, when do we get these pies?
Yeah,
when we were kids, Pluto was still a planet, but I guess it's not now.
I think they took it out. Yeah.
Justice for Pluto.
And then Saturn is a wrestler with a bad face tattoo.
Yes. who I would never want to bother and make angry. So Perry Saturn, all big fans over here at
Oh,
S1E1.
I love Saturn, but
Is-
Go Moppy.
I always wondered this: is Saturn gay?
No.
No, it's a planet.
I don't think planets can be gay, Nick.
No, I don't believe so. No.
Okay, valid.
So all right, so it starts off. You just see this shot of the stars after the intro, and you hear like a radio show, and it's all about alien encounters. The first girl claims that she's been sucked up many times, and the reason for that is they want her eggs to start a new alien race. So you're kind of getting a vibe for like, this call, like, people who call into this like alien encounter radio show. It's probably a little out there. But then the next guy who calls says that he just saw 4 aliens in a Rambler. And as he's saying that, they pan down and you see the 4 main characters of the show sitting in a Rambler. They have just turned into their human form, as we find out as they start to talk.
What's weird is you never know how they get the Rambler, and they don't come on to that. So they
I
obviously
assume
came
it's
down
just
to
their ship,
Earth.
and it took a form. I mean, that's me guessing a lot.
Yeah, if they
but
can make themselves into a human, they can make a Rambler.
I was
Can
going
they
to say
make
that
physical objects into other physical objects?
I don't know. They made the alien tentacles into arms and legs.
they got
Would you
10
pick a
hands and
Rambler?
11
What car would you pick? Okay, how about that? Better question. If you can make your ship any car, what car are you picking? Let's hear it.
Ford Fairlane.
Nobody?
I don't know.
I,
Andrew Dice Clay.
I've always wanted to drive one, so I would pick a hearse.
I've wanted to own a hearse for years.
I know
looked
that's what I
into
was
it.
going for.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I don't want to be a
So
hearse.
this was
no.
just targeted at me. Yeah, I know. Years ago, I started looking at buying a hearse. I thought it'd be cool to deck out the back, not for like bodies, but maybe find like a low, no
You should
leg
get
couch or
Exhibit on
something
the
to throw it in.
phone.
I
Name it
heard you
Patty.
liked hearses, so
But yeah, they're not
Pimp
great
your
on gas
hearse.
apparently, and I didn't want to spend all that money on a joke that only I found funny. So,
Oh, like Wu Tang.
Joe, under the event that you ever start to drive, what kind of car would you like?
Well, imagine I will be getting a license eventually. I really want an OJ Bronco.
Broncos are coming back.
yeah, and they're
Yeah,
ugly as
I mean,
fuck. But that's
The
a good
best
one.
are the
I like that
80s
one.
one. The 2-seater ones from the 80s are the best, but having the white OJ year would be pretty fun.
And as we meet these 4 characters, by the way, so it's the main 4 characters of the show. Upon seeing them at this point, and even to think back at this time when the show first aired, the only person I think I would have recognized at that point is John Lithgow. I
Also,
don't think the other
then,
3.
Yeah.
French
John
Stewart, maybe.
Lithgow has Ric Flair syndrome, and he has been the same age for 50 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy
Yeah.
how little that guy is aged, but is still old.
Yeah, and I would have just known him mainly from what, like Harry and the Hendersons, Footloose. I mean, he was in a bunch of stuff, but things that I would have actually known at that point.
Back then, only Harry and the Hendersons was all I knew. When, we were kids and it was on.
I think Footloose I would have
I don't
probably
think
known
I
too.
really was into Footloose as a kid, but
Yeah, and then the other 3.
love it now.
Joseph
Love Kevin
Gordon-Levitt,
Bacon.
obviously, he went on to have a huge career. French Stewart, I
I
think I'll
love-
only know him from this role. I can't think of him in anything else even since. And,
I can
I
only
love
think of
him
him
in
in this or people making fun of him on SNL around
Right.
this time. That's
Yeah.
like the 2 points of reference for French Stewart.
I know you were just about to say it, Gordo, but once I started watching it, I was like, there's no way French Stewart is not Gordo's favorite character on this
I was
show.
yeah, I was going to say he definitely is my favorite character on this
yeah,
show.
and surrounded out Kristen Johnson, who she did one of the Flintstone movies after the fact, but I can't think of anything that I would have seen her in beforehand.
She's
She was in the
one of
Rocky and
Austin
Bullwinkle
Powers
movie. She
movies,
played
too.
Natasha.
Oh,
This
she
is also-
Natasha?
yeah.
Oh wow.
Okay.
She's like the fembot that explodes, I think, in like Austin Powers 3, maybe.
I think you're right, actually. Yeah.
Oh
Was
yeah.
she?
I think that's the one with like Danny DeVito and John Travolta, where they all like the weird, like, kind of expand the cast out to real people. I forget. I saw it in the theater a million years ago. I don't think I need to see
Also-
a gold member ever again.
Back to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. If we could give him, or if I could give him whatever an S1E1 award would be, it would, because there are so many bad child actors, and we've seen a few of them already on the shows we've watched, but he fucking nails it. He's just like
Yeah, he
a
was pretty good
really
throughout
good,
this whole episode. Yeah.
he's a really good child actor.
Did anyone happen? I didn't. Did anyone happen to give a look to how old he may have been when this one came out? I don't know off the top
I
of my
didn't
head.
look,
and I'm
but that
putting you
seems like a
on the
Gordo
spot.
question.
I have to talk.
He'll
to
have
my
to do his
sources.
You look
research.
that
He's
up,
gonna have
Gordo.
to.
Did
he's
anybody
gonna have
else
to
get
consult him.
vibes? He kind of reminded me of Edward Furlong in Terminator 2 a little bit. Like it was the
Could see
haircut
that.
and around
What-
the same time.
What year did this show start again, Jay?
This was 96.
So he was born in 81. So he was like 14,
15.
No, 15. Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
Confirmed.
so I mean, he's not as young as you would think at this point, but still, yeah, he's pretty young and he holds his own in the
He's
show.
the age he's supposed to play. So I mean,
yeah.
makes sense.
And,
Yeah.
and he's had a great career. Good for him. He pulled out of the child actor curse thing pretty well.
And they make it pretty clear early on. So as soon as we meet them, they definitely establish that they are in fact aliens who just took human forms because they're already comparing things that they can and can't do, like they're not able to lick their own backs. So they pan over to the couple making out next to them in the other car, and they think that that is the alternative. If you can't turn your head all the way to lick your own back, is you just lick each other, and that's how you clean one another.
He's cleaning her.
This is also where he says to everyone check to make sure they have 10 fingers and 11 toes, which is
Yes.
Yeah.
a pretty good joke. But then the girl doesn't contest that.
Nobody does. So I'm wondering
No,
if
nobody
they have
does.
11 toes. By
Yeah, they probably
accident.
just thought that's what they were supposed to do, so they all took on that when they were forming themselves.
Oh, I took it as a penis joke. Like there was like 10.
No,
10 and
I never.
1.
That's
Yeah,
not how
no.
I took it.
My mind did not go.
Really?
there.
Although, like,
No.
we're gonna get into it as we go along. This whole episode riddled with sexual jokes and references throughout the entire half hour.
Big time,
like,
yeah.
Yes.
Way more than I would have expected for like a standard primetime sitcom.
Well, S1E1 community. If anybody else thought that was a penis joke, let me know.
So there's also there's a joke about how only for better or worse, we don't know their characters' names yet, but Sally's character is the only one who has breasts. And then they start comparing, and French Stewart's like, "Oh, I got smaller breasts," and they start looking at his chest.
I fucking love
And then as they're going around and comparing their bodies, there's also this point where they're
Killed
amazed
Gordo.
because Dick notices the couple that's making out again, and because she's like leaning back, he thinks she's about to try to drive with her feet. So they all go to look again, and that's when she's like, "Get her home." It's like, that's a great idea. That pretty much took us out of that intro scene. So right off the bat from that whole intro, I mean, they make it very clear what's going on. They're human. They're not actually humans. They're aliens who came down to human form, and they're just going from there. Gordo, you all right?
What are you so? French Stewart really does it for you, huh?
He does. Oh
For
god.
real, on
And
this
I'm
thing.
also thinking of the other part where we'll get to where I'm gonna also explode with laughter at the end of the episode.
All right. So
I don't know why I get the giggles.
all right. So right from there, we get this the narration from John Lithgow's character Dick, which it's like narration they're on a third-rate planet. He got a job at a third-rate university, and they're about to get a third-floor apartment. And that's when we enter their house, which is just this attic apartment. The woman who's like the landlord, she's like very trapped in the 60s with her attire, like smoking a cigarette. Just
What
kinda
is she
reminiscing.
from? Is she from something? Does
I
anybody
didn't
know?
look her up.
Because she was
Yeah,
super
I forgot to look
familiar.
her up. She does look
Joe,
familiar
is
though.
she
Definitely
from some like
character
80s
actor-y.
movie that you love, or
She definitely is. I'm sure if we looked her up, I'd be like, oh, she's in some canon film that nobody cares about.
but yeah, no, I mean, she was like definitely very, very much like a character. She had her Angora sweater on that was like a fabric they've never encountered, so they're all rubbing their faces all over her to like feel and experience this Angora.
And Gora's itchy.
Yep. And also at that point, I like when she's first walking them in, she mentions that this attic used to be their like rumpus room from like back in the 60s, and that the carpet had seen more butts than Santa Claus's lap. I thought was a pretty funny line.
Yeah, just keeping the sexual innuendos going there.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
Like it's not
throughout the
innuendo,
entire-
but sexual references.
yeah, a lot of that comes up.
So the actress Elle Marie Wendell, this is what she's most known for. She did like Broadway tours.
She's
and
also
whatnot.
appeared on like a bunch of
A
shows
bunch of shows,
that we
yeah.
will probably end up doing. Like she was in The
Seinfeld.
Jeffersons. She was
Yep.
in Murphy Brown. She was in Major Dad, the movie. She was in Seinfeld. She was in Empty Nest. She's in a ton of them.
Oh, I love Empty
Yeah.
Nest.
She was in the movie Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah,
Great
she
movie.
was.
The
As
horror
soon as we do
one.
Golden Girls, my next pick is Empty Nest because that's one of the best spin-offs of all time.
I don't even know what that is.
Me too.
Oh, you will find out.
I watched that one. Yeah.
She's also in the Lorax.
And then
The Danny
after-
DeVito one.
After she leaves, they start kind of going over their mission a little bit. That's when Dick tells Sally that she needs to track over the landlord to learn more about women. And then it's like, well, why can't Harry do that? And because you're the woman. And then she's like, well, why am I even the woman? And then he goes, because you lost. I was like, oh, I feel like that. I mean, that joke would probably work today, but like not everyone would be happy with it.
That wouldn't
The
work.
massage
today.
a
That
little bit
wouldn't
more now.
That wouldn't work.
He would have a quip back, I think.
I wish
You
it
know, or
would
at
work,
least a
but it
comeuppance.
does not work.
There would have, she would have to say something back at him for that.
She
to
couldn't
kinda
just
fly.
take it like
Yeah.
she does in the episode.
That's when Harry walks in and he's unable to see, and then Sally reminds him that he has to open his eyelids. He's like,
Oh,
oh,
they're
they're
manual.
manual.
I think the
They're
line is, I
manual.
can't see through my eyelids. So open them.
To be fair, though, when French Stewart's eyes are open, like, how does he even
They're
see?
still
Because
pretty
they're
closed.
always like super squinted, anyways.
Yeah, Squint Brothers.
Well, the thing I was thinking when this happened was they didn't just come down like 4 seconds ago. Like there was a whole scene from the day before, or at least the day before. We don't know how long ago in between those scenes it was when they were in the car, but he's been using the eyes already and the eyelids, right? Like this wasn't his first experience using it.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought it was a
weird.
funny joke, but they were definitely really pushing the whole they're aliens thing. And like, I guess when you overthink something in such a ridiculous concept, that joke doesn't completely make sense.
The
but-
show was really weird with timing, like of how long they've been there, because not to get that far ahead, but like when like he already has the job when like Dr. Albright, like he's been stealing her parking spot for a while, but they've only been there for like a day. It's like it's very confusing.
We'll get into it
I
later.
feel the
but
same way. We'll touch on it, yeah. But at the end, they talk about
Yeah.
time, and I was like, wait, what? How long?
Yeah,
Like you feel like it's one day.
exactly.
Yeah.
They made it look like the opening scene was the moment they landed because they were checking all their whatevers, and there must have been some sort of a gap. That must have been when they first came down, and there must have been a gap from there to
Yeah,
them.
that
getting
was
the
super
apartment, I assume.
confusing for me too. Yeah.
But again, it's kind of a wacky premise to begin with, so I guess you kind of have to just take it for what it is. And then from there is when we get to the school, I believe is the next scene when where Dick works, Dr. Solomon, when he's at work, and he's talking to Tommy in the office, and Tommy had been watching girls play volleyball, and as a 15-year-old, he was, very excited by that. So I guess like when they take
little hot and
human
bothered by
form,
that.
they experience the human emotions and things that go along with that. Is that what we're to assume?
So I kind of took it that they didn't, even though they said they formed it. I thought that maybe they took over people's bodies. Is maybe I'm missing
I didn't
something
really
here
read it
because
that way.
Sure, it's something explained later in the series, but in the pilot,
No, I think
nothing-
they are
don't say it.
intentionally vague about it for almost the entire series.
Yeah, I don't think they want
Yeah.
to
I
make
think
it
they're
like
too vague,
weird and
honestly.
gross either.
We haven't really talked about what our thoughts are so far on this, but I think they're too vague, man. I don't know. There's a lot
So-
right now so far this whole
Yeah.
episode. There's a couple of good
Well,
jokes, but
they're
I
introducing
just
you to
kept
a very
asking questions,
weird.
being like, wait, what?
It's a weird premise. Obviously, it's like they came down and they're just bringing you right into their world pretty early, right? Like for aliens to come down to Earth, take human form, and live their lives here. They really wanted to inject you into their day-to-day very quickly. They didn't really want to get into a lot of explanation. And I personally was fine with that, but yeah, that does create a
Yeah.
little bit of holes.
So I was going to say that kind of makes the whole thing a little confusing to me. Is that I would have thought that the pilot episode would have been them trying, because you figure, okay, fine, they're aliens, they're coming down and they're trying to do an experiment. We'll find out later, but how did they go about getting an apartment? How did they even know what an apartment is? How did they, how did he get a job? Like, I know that they kind of touch on it, and I'll let you get to that part, but how do they do all of this? And I feel like that would have been a better first show where you could have injected pretty much all the same jokes in there, but like, I don't know. That's
The
just
second
me.
half of this episode feels like it should be S1E1, but that the pilot should have been before it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we come into this
Right. Yeah.
missing half an episode worth of information, and then you just feel lost the whole time. And then you're laughing at jokes, and when they come back to something else, you come back being like, wait, what? Why? What's happening
Yeah.
here?
So I think
And I feel like that they just keep throwing you off with like, well, don't make him think about it, make him laugh again. And maybe that works better again on a week-to-week show where you're just like, oh, this is on, I'm eating dinner. But with a
It's tough-
critical
it's
mind,
really
you're like,
tough
what is
with,
happening here?
it's really tough with sci-fi because they have a half hour to present this show, so they can't just give like over and over like, oh, this is how this scientifically works. This is how this works. You just have to believe, you know?
Yeah, and I think for the
Suspension of
purpose of a
disbelief.
pilot, if you focus too much on how they get there and not what the show is going to be, then people might be turned off by it. They want you, the viewer, to experience what you're going to be watching from weeks to come. Where in something this tricky, the origin story would be unlike any other episode you'd watch going forward. So maybe there's a little bit of that. And I also think that there's an element of, by keeping it a little vague, it gives you more freedom down the road. You're not pigeonholing yourself with all these things that you have to keep in mind later as they come up with ideas. So that by leaving it vague, they can kind of create as they will moving forward and not worry about that they box themselves in too early.
Yeah.
What I
it's a
think they
smart
should
way
have
to
done
do it.
is, and I've only ever seen the Star Wars movies once each, so maybe I'm not the right person to say this, but you know the crawl at the beginning of Star Wars, like on a galaxy far away, blah 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 blah. If they just did that for 20 seconds at the beginning of this episode, you'd A, get the point that it was a sci-fi show, and B, they could give you a bunch of backstory without killing a whole bunch of the show, and then you jump in. He
I'm
comes
not
down,
even
he becomes
kidding.
a
That would
professor.
immediately turn me off to the show. I don't know why, but like I love Star Wars, but it would just be really weird on a sitcom.
Yeah, I think
I
Jay-
probably would change it.
To Jay's point, they just had more room if they aren't specific. You know what I mean? They can alter things that they didn't plan on altering previously. Like I forgot that they could read mind or each other's minds, really.
Yeah, and it
You
seemed
know?
like that was with permission. That comes up later, but yeah, it seems like you have to give each other permission to be able
True,
to
yeah.
do that. And the one other thing I want to mention from that conversation with Tommy watching the girls playing volleyball, other than that, it seems that he has, a physical human response to seeing girls that he's attracted to, was that's also when we discover that Tommy is actually older than Dick. So
Mhm.
even though he's the child of the group, that's just the body that he took, but he's actually much older than him. And that's just how all that stuff goes. Just like how
I
Sally
do like
is
that part of the
apparently
premise.
not.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a genderless alien form that they are, because they don't really get into that. It was just, why did I have to be the woman? It wasn't like I'm a man in real, but they called her sir, I think, when they talked, but I don't know. Maybe it's an
Did you
all male
guys-
alien race.
Did you notice that their names are Tom, Dick, and Harry? Like the saying, like, oh, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, like it's just the general term.
I
for,
did,
I
but
like,
didn't
that's a
put
good-
that
that's a good
together,
joke.
but I noticed the Harry and Sally.
Sally, yeah.
Harry and Sally. I thought the when Harry met Sally thing was the thing I picked up on, and I did not pick up on the Tom, Dick, and Harry part.
I can't believe I didn't pick up on either of those, and I'm really mad at myself right now.
You failed.
Tom, Dick, and Harry, also the three tunnels from The Great Escape.
Joe, do you know who Joe Diffie is? He's a country
I
singer.
don't know who Joe Diffie is.
The name of the show was named after a song he has called Third Rock from the Sun.
No, I'm not familiar.
And then they had the movie Meet Joe Diffie.
Well, this
So-
was produced by Carsey Werner, who also did the TV show A Diffie World.
That's true.
So, all right. So to close out this quick part of the scene, because this is Tommy walks off because he needs to go to the library, and this is one of many sexual references. Again, he has to look up the word throb. And I was like,
I thought that was
seems
really
like-
funny. Yeah.
it was funny. I
Yeah.
felt like it was a hair inappropriate, like just a little, like they could use something a little lighter for the word, but I mean, funny.
That's
nonetheless.
after he was like checking out the secretary, and she's like, "Get out!" Like I forget. What
Oh,
she
that's right.
says.
That's right. So yeah, that would be
Who made the secretary? Sassy secretary Nina.
The
Yeah,
throb
Nina.
joke too is one of those that's one of those stupid words that wouldn't make it onto a TV show today for no good reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was
like
just gonna say that it's also a word that people like. People have a weird thing where it's like, I don't like the word moist.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you like the word moist? What are you
That's
talking
so
about?
much, yeah.
Throb is
Yeah.
one of those things too. I don't like the
It's
word
some-
throb.
It's because somebody said
Okay.
it once and got a laugh, and it became a thing.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
like,
like
it definitely.
if I could
became a
kill
parody.
one person, it's the person who made the I don't like the word moist reference.
I would kill Hitler.
Not Hitler. I don't like the word moist.
Joe's in
You
a
win
room
this
with two
round,
men and a
Hitler.
gun.
Shoots Toby twice. So yeah, so we meet.
Her brains
we
are
meet
all
Nina.
bananas.
We meet Nina in that situation. So she is his assistant, I'm assuming, right? At the school. That's I can't
Secretary,
imagine
yeah.
anything else. Yeah,
I gotta say,
secretary. I
she is a
can't-
great assistant, by the way. Just that whole like mail scene, like
yeah.
not to get too
all the
far
mail.
ahead, but like throws away his junk mail for him and then says this is one, but there's nothing you can do about it. Throws that away. It's like that's a great secretary.
Yeah, do the
He's a
dirty
great
work.
character too, because you can tell she's clearly the brains behind the operation. She's like one of those characters who, like, in the
Yeah.
background is actually
Yeah.
doing everything, and you just
Well, yeah,
feel for
she's
them 'cause
like-
they're the smart one.
That I kind of noticed that she was kind of how Dick is learning, right? He was like, oh, like when he's like, when she said she's gonna pick him up, and he goes, "Well, won't that hurt your back?" And she's like, "No,
Yeah.
in my car." And like that's his. He learned a lot from her as far as like the human, social standards and stuff like that.
I got a good laugh.
And I
out
imagine
of,
going forward, that makes his character more fun, right? Because the person he's learning from is kind of like quippy and sarcastic,
Right? Yeah.
right? So like the person he's miming is somebody who's not just like a regular, polite, quiet person. They're like a sort of funny, brash person.
I did like him taking a liking to her perfume, and his way to go about that was just
Sticking his
Bas-
face in her ass,
yeah,
basically.
just went for it, just stuck his face right in there, and I was like, oh my god.
I like the line too. That better be your nose. Why is that any better? He stuck his nose in her.
Yeah,
ass.
yeah, I don't get that either.
Yeah, it could
I
be
don't
like
know
a
if-
glass tube, or it could be his nose. But either way, you don't want that in there.
I mean, if you had a pick in the situation, I guess, like, I guess.
Also,
I would
side
take John
note-
Lithgow's nose.
Side note,
You know
just
he can do
for-
sexual stuff. You've seen him slap Bigfoot.
I've also seen Dexter. It could get pretty weird.
Mhm.
His
John
season,
Lithgow is
I
a
forgot to
great
mention this.
actor.
We don't have to talk about it and go on a side tangent, but his season of Dexter, he is chilling.
Leaps
Dexter.
and
He is
bounds.
amazing in that.
The
He
best
is-
He
season.
made
so
that
scary.
season so good. Every other season was just terrible in comparison after. I mean, not before. but
100% agree.
it ruined the rest of the show for me because he was so good in his
Yeah.
season.
Like,
And
sorry,
before-
Lumen, it's over.
Before we record half our Dexter episode, I want to mention too, Ed, while his face is firmly planted in her ass, that's when she asks about Mrs. Solomon, and he says that no, she burned on re-entry. So am I to assume that she
Yeah.
was she supposed to be part of the mission, but she just exploded as the one extra human that was, or alien that was supposed to be human? Is that
That's
what
a good
happened? They
question.
didn't
I
all
didn't
make
really
it?
think about that.
Yeah, there must have
just
been
took
sort of
it as a
accident. We
joke.
should have had one extra person.
Yeah,
Who would
and
that
I-
be in a cast? If you had to cast his wife at that time, Kitty would be a great cast for that.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I guess when you
Yeah.
look at their ages and at the time those shows came out, it's funny because those shows only came out like a couple years apart, but this show
And
seems
also,
so
too,
much
I was
older.
thinking when they go to the interstitials for this show, where they show the like planets randomly, it's very that 70s show too. Like if
It
you just
is.
went like
Yeah.
Woo, woo, woo.
over it, you'd be like right in that 70s show.
Yeah.
Also, Nina's response to him saying that was that she used to have a boyfriend that used to do that, and now he walks with a limp. And I didn't. I'll be honest, I didn't get the joke. I
I
had
didn't
no idea what that
get
meant.
that either.
What's the line?
When he said that his wife burned on re-entry, got burned on re-entry, she said that she had a boyfriend that used to do that, and now he walks with a limp.
My assumption was he
Yeah.
gave her chlamydia.
But why would he?
Because if you
Was
give
that an
somebody chlamydia
STD
on
joke?
re-entry, it burns when they pee.
It could have.
So then
it
she
could have
found
been
out he was
that's not-
cheating, gave her chlamydia, and she broke his leg.
Yeah,
That's where my
maybe.
brain went, but
Well, yeah,
I
you
just-
also thought the 11th toe was a dick, but I didn't think of it that way. But I wouldn't be shocked if that's where they were going. But I certainly at the moment did not get the joke. But that
I
could
thought that was
possibly
a-
be it.
No,
I thought
still
that was
don't
a-
get it.
I thought that was a premature ejaculation joke
Why
I
would he
don't
walk with a
understand
limp?
why he walks with a limp.
That's
Is
the
what I
thing.
don't understand. That part
because
of the
she
joke.
fucked
yeah,
him
if you were
so
dating
good.
somebody and you had premature ejaculation, do you think they'd break your leg or just break up with you?
Yeah,
I took
unfortunately, I
that
think
as
Joe's answer might be the most logical. I think we're gonna come up with.
Maybe
That's
he
right.
tried to
that
like.
it is.
Maybe he tried to like bang her in the ass. She didn't get permission. and
Okay,
she,
okay,
you know,
Well,
okay.
how about
okay.
this? If John Lithgow or anybody else is out there from the show that wants to tweet at us,
Yeah, we're gonna
Please
get
do,
John
and-
Lithgow after we've just talked about banging in
How
the
great he was in
ass
Dexter,
real
at least,
quick.
Yeah, we did give him a lot of compliments.
we
on Dexter.
give
It was
him a
very
lot of
good.
credit.
Yeah,
He's
he's
like a
great.
world class
deserves an
actor.
Oscar.
Yeah.
I loved him in Planet of the Apes as well. But moving on, from this point is when we meet Dr.
Yeah,
Albright.
he was in that.
He was in
Sorry.
Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
The
in the remake
James
with
Franco
James
one.
Franco, who
He
we
was
can't
the
talk
planet.
about anymore. So
Fuck you, Nick.
He's great in that, by the way. A lot of
Yes.
emotional range.
So,
in that
anyways, Dr. Albright enters, and you can see a tension between them right away because they're only speaking through Nina, and that's played by Jane Curtin, who's a very accomplished actress in her own right. I guess I'll go to it again. Are there certain things that you most know her from? I feel like I just always know her face.
She
but
just
can't think
looks
of a
like she
specific.
could be Jodie
I know her
Foster's
from
mom.
this show.
She's Primat Conehead.
Right.
That's
Right.
right.
That's
where
probably
I'll
that
get
would
her
probably be
from.
the main. That'd probably be the
Nabs,
main thing.
Nabs.
That's right. She
Wait,
is.
what's her name again?
Jane
Jane Curtin?
Curtin.
Jane Curtin.
Because you said that.
Also,
like,
the
the show
famous
does have
scene
a
in
lot. The
Saturday
show
Night
has a
Live,
lot
Jane, you
of
ignorant slut.
vibes. But this show has a lot of Conehead vibes.
Yeah. So yeah, she was on SNL, like one of the first SNL.
She was one of the first members. Yeah, the Jane, you ignorant slut with Dan Aykroyd is a big thing with her. Primat Conehead's a big thing with her. She's
Yep.
the one who does the Consumer Reports with Dan Aykroyd about the toys that kill kids. She was all over that show. She's great.
Was she a week? She was a Weekend Update host, right? One of the first.
Yes.
Was she the one who did it alongside of Chevy Chase in the first season?
I can't remember if Chevy Chase did it alone and she was a correspondent and then became, because Chevy Chase left after season 1. I think she came on in season 2. I think the famous stuff with her and
The
Chevy
Jane,
Chase
you
is
ignorant
just
slut.
like
Actually,
a-
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Jane-
her coming on because they're doing like a point counterpoint thing.
But yeah.
Anyway,
we see
great,
this-
very funny. She's great in this.
Yeah, we see like a kind of like a sexual tension between her and Dick right away, pretty much. Like you can see that there's something there, and that she's kind of into him. She's mad at him, but she kind of digs him, and then she'll say something to him, and he doesn't understand properly what's flirting, what's not. So he usually takes the non-flirty things as flirting, even though there are actual flirty things that he's not picking up on. And then when they were talking about the driving spot, she said something about how she drives a red Volvo, and he goes, "We just met."
I thought that was great too.
Soon after that, we find out that he took her thesis out of her desk, which he had to apparently break into the desk to get it. And she was kind of like touched at first when she found out that he read the whole thing and memorized it, until he broke out into laughter and talked about how funny it was, because obviously this was not intended to be a comical documentation.
I think it shows just like how obvious, how what's the word I'm looking for?
Advanced
His
he is.
resume to get the job. He made himself very like
Smart.
just overqualified. So he's like prestigious there. So she like really cared about his opinion.
He puts him in high regard, but then on
Yeah, she
top of it,
values
when
his
you
opinion pretty
factor
high.
in the fact that he's not actually from this planet, probably has a wealth of information that we don't have.
That's
So-
how I read it. Yeah, that
I
I thought
believe-
he like her thesis was, I don't know, so wrong, or like in theory so wrong as far as where as the viewers are supposed to believe, because of what he knows about stuff more than humans
to,
do.
To go back, like, a few weeks back when we did The Good Place, right? It would be like if Michael came down and read, a long theology book from, like a cardinal or something, and went, this is so off. And,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how I took it, at least.
Yeah, that's how I took it too.
And then she got very upset by his laughter and exited the room at that point. That's kind of how that scene ends. And then from there, we get Harry and Sally with the landlord, right? They're in their own kitchen, I believe, though, but she's up there with
Yeah,
them.
they're on the 3rd floor. They're in their apartment.
And then they're mixing ground beef, like maybe making meatballs or something, but they didn't quite understand how all this works. So
They
Meatloaf.
were like
idea-
meatloaf.
Meatloaf.
they're making meatloaf. Okay. So I
Yeah, they were
just
reading
remember
the
the
recipe.
ground beef. Yeah. And as
Which is basically meatballs without the cheese. So you're right on.
yeah, and you bake ketchup on it like a weirdo afterwards. I don't understand, but
I always use tomato paste. And by me,
I never
mean
use
my
any of
mom.
that stuff, man. That's not how you make a meatloaf.
I don't put
Meatloaf
anything
recipe, simple.
tomato on the top personally, but so they're going over this, and French Stewart's character, I'm sorry, Harry he was like, wait, so you put the cow right in the grinder? Like, and he's like, no, the cow is dead for hours. And then Sally's reaction was really good when she realizes that she's just holding lumps of dead cow, which,
Yeah.
it's one of those, I
Just
guess, like for
freaks
all
the
of us,
fuck
you
out.
just, you don't think about it in the moment, but you're just, like kneading dead animal meat, when you're
It is
you're
pretty
making
gross
your,
when you think
your,
about
your
it. Yeah.
meal. But she gives that nice like Willem scream and bolts out of the room.
after
that's-
wiping her hands on
all over Harry.
French
yeah.
Stewart and him
All over
going
French Stewart's
women.
shirt, yeah.
And to go back to Ferg when you said like tomato paste, that looked like tomato paste that was all over him. That was
He
not
wiped,
ground
you
beef.
wiped. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
definitely,
like that
prop,
mixed with like Play-Doh or something. That was certainly not ground beef. That was all over him, whatever the prop department decided to use for that.
Prop beef.
And that's
Prop beef
when
right
Harry
here
goes,
for
women can't live with them, yet they're everywhere.
you. Yeah. And I like how the landlord too agrees with that.
Yeah, she's
As
like,
a
"Yeah, we
woman,
suck."
she's like, yeah, you're right.
We
Like
are
the-
everywhere.
This show,
If
this
she's agreeing with
show-
the second part, she's like, you are correct. There are many of us.
Yeah.
this show isn't very female friendly. I don't think most of the jokes that go throughout the episode are not very pro woman. So next we get back to the classroom where you see Dick's doing something on the chalkboard, and he's just way too advanced for all these students. At least he's going on about this long problem, and everyone's pretty much dumbfounded. And then from there, he asks kind of a more simple question, which I thought was actually kind of interesting. He just said, "How far away is Cleveland?" One person gives an answer, and then he goes to someone else, and he just says, "Answer it a different way." And I was like, that's takeaway of the comedy of the show. I was like, that's a very interesting approach for teaching, because he was showing them that there's multiple ways to answer the same question. And I actually thought that was like very interesting and really, really enjoyed that.
I was gonna say
More than a way to shred a cow.
so the also in that same scene that the kid that is who thinks he's wrong.
Would that be Leon?
Yeah, that was
Leon.
hilarious.
So did you know that Leon is John Lithgow's son? That
Yes,
he
I
is
did know
played
that
by-
actually. Yeah,
Ian-
I forgot to bring that up.
I did
He
not
is
know
played
that.
by Ian Lithgow, who is
Leon
best
Lithgow.
known for this.
Who was
Role.
way less successful than his father.
Yeah. So in that
Yeah,
role,
true.
as they're all giving answers for potential other answers for how far away is Cleveland, Leon, who apparently is John Lithgow's son, raises his hand, and he's kind of reluctant to answer because he's like, I'm just going to be wrong. I don't want to say it. And he says, it can be an eternity away if that's where your heart is, which is a very sweet thing to say. Basically, if your love is in Cleveland, it could feel like much more than 100 miles away. or wherever
Guarantee
they-
no one's ever said that about Cleveland.
Well, Ohio is
Well,
for
if you-
lovers.
Well, if you love someone in
That's
Cleveland, I
Virginia.
don't think he's saying his love for the city itself, but yeah, no. And then at that point, Dick goes to the chalkboard and he's trying to rationalize that answer by using actual math, and then turns to him and goes, "No, that is wrong. That's a wrong answer."
It's like a crazy, crazy math equation. He's using symbols I've never seen before. Like the
Yep.
level of smart he is and the stuff he knows is just like you're so out of your league when you watch it.
And this is where the class kind of gets on board, though, right? And they're like, "Well, no, like human emotion, and like that's how things work. Like the human experience doesn't exist without emotion," which was like, revolutionary to him, because now he's realizing the importance of emotion to be a human, which, when you go back to their mission, that's kind of a big piece of the puzzle that they weren't really considering.
I do like how, and sorry if we touched on this already. I was in a work email for a second, so you might have touched on it. But I like how not only are they just in human form, but they are experiencing human emotion to the point where it surprised them.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that goes back to even earlier too, when I was talking about Tommy, when he was like watching the girls play volleyball, and obviously there was like a sexual reaction that he was feeling seeing those girls, right? So
Yeah, and the puberty
you're not just
conversation
taking the
coming
form,
up
yeah.
was really funny.
Well, like what makes me like question, like, is this their first mission? Because you'd think they had been on other planets, they would have taken other like species forms.
Well, at this point of the episode
So
where he
they would
does
be used
touch
to-
on how different and unique Earth is to anywhere else they've been. So I think that maybe that's what makes us unique versus other potential planets with life form. That'd be my guess.
They kind of pick up on the rest of the planets are all, because he calls us a third-rate planet, right? So maybe the rest of the planets, the people are so evolved, or the inhabitants of whatever course they are so much more evolved that they don't have these sort of weird, petty human squabbles and issues
Yeah,
like
because
feelings and
Emotions
love.
is a detriment when you really look at it, right? When you add emotion to the picture, that's what really complicates it. When you just use logic and numbers, everything is very simple.
Yeah, if you're a Vulcan.
So
Yeah, that's probably why
We
they're
touched on
here
Star
sti-
Trek and Star Wars so far. How we're doing? Maybe get a Lord of the Rings reference they can make. Maybe a walking
I've never
tree
seen
they
one.
can throw
So
into this.
yeah, you guys would have to chime in with one of those.
I saw one on a field trip and I fell asleep. It was so boring.
I've never seen a single one.
They're great.
Yeah,
we probably
long.
we
None
might
of you have
upset
seen
a
it?
lot of people. No, we were watching TV while you were watching Lord of the Rings. Apparently,
Let
Oh,
him,
you
let him
not
be
seen
upset, nerds.
Ferg's the only one here with taste.
Thank you.
so from this point we get Nina enters the room and after class expires and reminds Dick about the dean's party that's going to be that night, and offers to give him a ride, and he's really excited because car horns are really exciting to him. So he's like, when you pick me up, can you at least honk the horn? She's
I
like, what are you
didn't
from
get that
Mars?
either.
Yeah, and he starts laughing. Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
where
oh,
I got the
Mars.
Conehead vibe when she's like, "What are you from Mars?" He goes, "I'm Mars." I was half expecting we are from France. Like,
Yeah, that was like astronauts to the moon. That's exactly what that was.
And then, from there, the next scene, Tommy sees like a very attractive girl in the cafeteria who is one of the volleyball players that he was referencing earlier. And he's trying to make conversation with her until Dick enters the room and kind of breaks that up. And that's when Dick informs Tommy that they're going to be extended the mission. So they're going to be staying on Earth longer than expected, because I guess they were going to leave that night.
He also
that's
says
how
at
I
that
took it.
point too that they were only supposed to be there a couple of days. That's the first time you get like, what is the time frame here? Like, obviously he got a job, they have a house, right?
Well, if you
He
remember
must have
from
been
the
extending
beginning,
it way.
all they needed to do was download the mainframe at the library.
download the internet.
Right.
Yeah, all they had to do was download the internet and get out of there.
Yeah. And Tommy's not very happy because he's experiencing puberty and he does not want to be stuck in this body much longer. And that's when they do the mind reading, and he's, permission to, get into your mind or whatever.
That's
And
the best reading of any line from John Lithgow the whole episode too. He's like, that's disgusting.
Yeah. Because he experiences what it's like to be a teenage boy for 10 seconds and needs to get out of there immediately.
One thing I respect about the show, though, is they didn't do the cliche that they like crash landed there and they were stuck. They had the option to leave at any time and chose to stay.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So so the next scene I thought was very interesting.
Oh, I know what scene this is.
This
You
is
know
when
exactly where
they're
I'm going with this one, right?
Is this when they're taking turns like holding the flashlight?
It's not a flashlight. There's no way. They are just bringing a dildo with them.
It's a
No way.
mag light.
No, that's a
They're acting-
flashlight.
That was a mag
Not a
light.
flashlight.
It's a
That is
gigantic
a dildo.
flashlight.
Joe, that
I
was
think
an
he's
old
holding
style
it in a
flashlight.
very sexual way. He's in the shower when there's people.
No,
No,
it
it
so
was
that's
it was
the
held
joke.
sexually. It was very phallic, but it was not
the joke. Yeah, the
actually
joke
a dildo.
is-
It was
is
a
the- yeah.
flashlight.
The joke
Because
is
he
that
holds it up like this, and you can see it's a flashlight. And
Joe.
it's got
The
a red
joke
button
is
on it.
that it's
How
like,
do you make
it's
a
phallic in
chair? You build a
nature.
table and you don't sit on it. How do you make a flashlight? You make a
Sure, you could do
dildo
the
and
same thing
don't
with the
use it for a
cucumber.
flashlight.
You could do the same
Right,
thing
Sure,
with the cucumber.
if he was holding it like that, I would assume. But the cucumber
So
wasn't
your
for me.
off the
your
rails.
mind was consistently in the gutter for this.
For a
huh?
show that's already
Yeah.
pretty
I'm
dirty,
oddly thinking
you've
about
taken it-
dildos a lot.
Yeah, you've taken it in a weird spot. So I'll say this: the whole point, I think, of the joke with the flashlight is that there was a phallic reference and
Yeah.
feeling that they got, that kind of like why they found it satisfying to hold. But the fact that you physically saw that item, this giant metal tube, and assumed it was a dildo, it's like, what medieval
It had a
torture
flat
sex
edge
shop
on
do you
each
go to
side,
that
Joe.
like this? I can't
I
imagine.
don't know what their orifice is like. They're aliens. I'm
so
not
you
an
thought this wasn't a
orifice
human
specialist when it
dildo.
comes
You
to
thought it
aliens,
was
but
a-
that thing was
oh,
going in
alien
somebody.
dildo.
Thrasher.
So it was a space dildo. That's
Suck my
why.
jack
Okay.
on.
So, but from there, because now there's a heightened sexual thing going on at this time where they're taking turns with this flashlight, not a dildo, Joe, flashlight, and
Incorrect.
that's when Tommy tells Sally to start jumping up and down, and Harry says, "And while you do that, put your hands behind your head." And I'm like, "What? What is
Yeah.
going on?"
I was a little disappointed. She
Human
didn't do it.
emotions.
Yeah. And then they were all three of them were waiting for her to do it. And like, come on. It was like, we won't tell anyone. It was like they were really trying to talk her in, and she walks off. She wants nothing to do with this.
Yeah, she
And,
said because it would be awkward
Yes.
to work with them afterwards, and they're all like, "No, it won't. No, it
Right.
won't." I mean, when you take it in the context that they're all guys,
Right.
like, yeah,
And when she walks off, she gets into a conversation with Dick right after this, back in the kitchen, and we find out a couple things here. That's when we find out that they've been there for 2 weeks, which was interesting because that kind of finally puts a little bit of a timeline on everything.
Yeah,
But
at least
they
you
kinda-
finally get the bump of like, when is this actually a time? What's the
Yeah.
time frame we're actually dealing
I
with?
guess I missed
with here?
that.
Yeah, they mentioned that it had been 2 weeks at that point, and then this is also though where they kind of go into the like her being a woman thing, and in that Dick commands as her higher commanding officer that she shaves her armpits, and I was like, again, that will not fly in a sitcom in today's world. So at this point, Sally could be again because the emotions that are part of them taking the human force do take over a little bit. So her hormones kick in a little bit, and she starts getting emotional and cries and kind of leaves, and that's where that scene ends. Next scene is the doctor takes all of them to the party, which I don't understand because Nina was supposed to drive Dick to the party originally, right? But we have so obviously that didn't happen if the four of them went together. At least I don't think. Also, they do have.
Yeah, imagine he
a car.
canceled when. Yeah, 'cause we only have the Rambler, so I imagine he canceled when he decided he wanted to take everybody. Or Nina said, "I'm not driving your whole family."
Right. But I was like,
But again,
it's
like
kinda
the
weird
many
that they-
things in the show, they just leave you to assume things.
Yeah, they kind of like threw the
Yeah,
joke
it's
in.
weird
'cause
how
they
many
wanted to-
times they did it.
they wanted to tell the joke about the horn and that he finds car horns entertaining. So they had to shove that in there, but it didn't pan out when you actually think about the events that happen after. It's like they just had this joke they wanted in the script and they just kind of left it in one way or another. And
All right, so this is where
then,
one of the greatest lines of the episode. Can I take your coat?
as long as I
As
As
long
long as I
my
can keep my pants.
Yeah, I was like, is someone gonna leave me hanging here? Come on.
You know
This
what
is
I loved
also
about
the
that?
first time you see Harry's iconic furry coat.
I was
He's
gonna
going
say,
for
because
on
I
the
hadn't
show.
seen a lot of this show. He does wear that all the time, right?
Yeah, this is that one.
Yeah, I remember like the episodes I've seen, he's always wearing that.
One thing I really liked about this scene, actually, I don't know if any of you picked up on it, but when they all entered the party, Sally's obviously in like a nice dress and she kind of has her breast picked up a bit in it. When she walks into the party first, one person from the studio audience goes, "Ow!" but by himself.
Yes.
And it just dies off. And it was like, what the?
Just her
I'm like-
husband in there for the taping.
Yeah, like I got such a kick out of it because it was like, there's a lot of times in shows where the whole crowd goes like, "Ooh," together, but it was just one guy.
It was
"Ow!"
like when Tim took his shirt off. in
Yeah,
Home
and there was like the
Improvement.
one excited girl.
Whoa!
Yeah, one super stoked person. Yeah, that was super funny. We laughed really hard at that.
And at this point, also before we get ahead, this is also when they walk in where Harry's character goes like, "I love where you put these walls." That's his way of complimenting the house.
Yeah.
And
That feels
from
like a very
there-
Dwight Schrute thing to say.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say well, you're just thinking of the David Wallace party when he has to inspect the entire house, but like this is kind of what made me think about French Stewart's character, and I can't make him adjacent to like any other character I've seen. Really, he's super unique.
Yeah, I mean, he's there to be a big comic relief for sure, and he's so strange that he's just very different. Yeah,
It's funny because it's like
he's
they're
like the
all
quirky
super,
friend. He's the Kramer. He's the Dwight, but he's nothing.
Yeah.
like
Yeah, he's
those
also
characters.
he's
Think
also
if all
like
those characters were aliens.
they're all super smart aliens, right? They're much more advanced than us, but yet he is still the dumb one.
yeah, because he's probably very like analytical and
Yeah.
numbers. Like
You'd have
he's-
to know more about the show, which we don't technically right now, to know like why he's with them and like his role. But he's a communications guy. Like when they radio to home, it goes through him.
So
And then-
he
can't
is
tell
the
that from
radio.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also as they enter this party, Dick kind of beelines it right to Dr. Albright and wants to apologize to her because he didn't like where that last conversation between them ended off, where he kind of laughed at her thesis, and he apologizes. And then she says that it needs to be a little more serious. So then he gives her a very sincere apology. And then he liked the way that felt. So he just did it again and then had a very like orgasmic reaction to saying that he was sorry again,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah,
like
he
very uncomfortable.
definitely is orgasming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got his flashlight in his pocket.
Yeah. And well, and then
Goddamn.
so
Got
she
a
runs off.
flashlight in your pocket.
So she gets very uncomfortable and runs off to the bathroom, and he goes to chase her there. And that's when we see Sally in the bathroom, and she's kind of, again, playing with her breasts in the mirror, kind of pushing them up and checking herself out. And
I feel like she's doing stuff that in the 90s Jim Carrey would do with his face, but with her boobs. There'd be a scene that
Yeah.
where Jim Carrey's just like moving his face around in the mirror.
I was
She
gonna
was
say,
doing
you
Jim
guys-
Carrey face
Oh,
boobs.
Joe, you either made Jim Carrey's face better or her boobs worse. I don't know.
I was going to say too, you guys are glossing over like the funniest part in this whole episode is when French Stewart picks
we're not
up.
there yet. That's why we didn't gloss over it. We didn't get there yet.
I thought that was before he starts chasing her.
It's in the scene in the bathroom.
Yeah,
In
he's
the
in the
bathroom.
shower.
No. When
he-
French
Gordo's
Stewart
right,
and
yeah.
when French Stewart and the woman there, when they first get in, he
Primat.
picks up the shrimp
Oh,
and he starts eating
food
the shrimp
scene.
and he's like, "Oh, I love these." And she's like, "Yeah, that's a shrimp." And then he picks it, he keeps going up, and he loves the hot dog weenies, the little weenies,
Cocktail weenies.
cocktail weenies. I don't know, that whole scene like that just got me. The way that the fork would just come like out of the frame and up in, and you'd be like, "Oh, I love this." And just his delivery, like to your point, Nick, he is very unique in his deliveries that makes it that much funnier.
Yeah.
And doesn't he have a space name for everything except cocktail weenies?
Well, yeah, no, they were all like just literal. Like the shrimp was a crustacean. Like it was all like
Oh,
it
okay.
was all
Okay, yeah.
like,
Very analytical.
literal. Yeah, it was. They were just it was. They weren't incorrect with what they were saying. It just wasn't how you would have said it. But yeah, there's so then the conversation between Dick and Dr. Albright. I can't remember what her first name is, so that's why I keep calling her that. But ends up in the bathroom, and she kind of like, I know that you have a thing for me, and like so did it lists like 10 different doctors before him that all had a thing for her before.
Mary Albright, by the way.
Mary Albright. Okay, so Mary and Dick are talking, and they kind of get into this, and she then admits that she's into it, and she's putting lipstick on, like, because she's, I know what you've been up to, and to be honest with you, I'm kind of into it. And I really like, there was a nice callback to early in the episode, because as she is approaching him with the lipstick on, he announces that he wants to clean her face, which is a reference to the first scene when they see the people making out in the car. And that's when he goes in for the kiss and like lays one on her. And then when they
She
pull away from the
slaps
kiss, yeah, she gives him a good slap, then kisses him, and then he pulls back and he's like, "Oh, this is what you do after you kiss." So then he just slaps her right back, and then they just kind of go back and forth slapping each other.
They get in like a pretty brutal looking slap fight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was not sexual. Well, I guess depending on your kink, but yeah,
For her, it was.
pretty
She
Yeah, I
got
feel like
really
it was
into
for
it
her.
after the slap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she really got into it.
And that's when another Harry reveal comes. So after they kiss, the shower is on, and they pull back the shower, and he's just standing there fully dressed with the water on him with his back turned, and he's
Staring at the
holding the
time.
flashlight. Yeah,
Holding the flashlight.
Holding the what?
the flashlight.
The
The
flashlight.
The
Oh,
flashlight.
the flashlight? That makes more sense. Okay.
No, the flashlight. Yeah, he's holding the flashlight. In the shower, and I was so confused, but it was very funny when that was happening.
Hands down the best scene in the whole show.
I'm,
That-
just
that's how I
I'm
got-
really enjoying Gordo's love for French Stewart.
Yeah.
Like
I
bonus
love
episode,
him.
we're gonna
Like-
watch Inspector Gadget 2. Be ready.
That's-
Oh, was he in that?
Your gadget.
No.
He was
too.
he was
we
in
ever-
the second
if we ever
Inspector
do
Gadget
movies.
movie.
But also when he turns around, like in the midst of this weird sexual thing with the flashlight and being dressed in the shower, he's like, "Oh, Dr. Albright, I was just thinking of you."
Which he says while holding a dildo.
No, not at all.
A flashlight. No, it's a flashlight.
How do you double? Like we're already listed as explicit. How do you list an episode as extra explicit? But
You should just
I
make
don't
an,
understand. It's very
allowance to mute just my
obviously a
track.
flashlight. I don't know how you don't see that.
I am a little confused by
That's not how I
Joe's
saw it.
deliberation. You thought the 11th toe was a dick, so your mind was just in a bad.
It still might
bad
be.
place.
And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I'm right on the gonorrhea thing too.
That one. That
don't
one I'll give
know.
you. But so this
Premature
is the end of-
ejaculation.
Jason,
This is-
thank you. Jake, thanks for giving me gonorrhea.
This is when they exit the party. This is when they exit the party,
This was another
And
great
the
callback.
wife gives him the dean's wife gives him. Well, you know what I was thinking was interesting too was we never meet the dean. It was the dean's party, right? We never even meet the host of the party unless
Maybe maybe that was the dean.
was she the dean?
When you're
She
calling
was the
wife.
dean.
That's very sexist. Of
Yeah, I
me.
think
That
she
was
was the
sexist
dean.
of
the
me.
dean's
I
wife.
assumed
No.
the dean was a male.
No, that was the dean.
that was the dean.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Wow.
she
He was
kissed him
off.
at the
That's bad
end.
on me. That's bad on me because I assumed the wrong way. This
No, because at the
very
end,
misogynistic show got into my brain, and now it's leaking into how I react.
yeah, no, because at the end he said, thank you so much for the party, and she kissed him, and then he slapped her.
He slaps.
Slaps her. Yeah.
Because
That
I watched
killed
the
me.
second half of this episode at work on my phone. And
The way God intended to watch.
And I was-
on my phone too.
I was doing something and I was watching it and I knew that was about to happen and it still caught me off guard when he just like full wind up slaps this lady
Yeah,
in
he-
her own
he
doorway.
got her
I
one.
belly laughed. It was hysterical.
no ramifications either.
I know,
Slapped
she's
his
like,
boss.
"See you later." And so we close out with them. From there, they're just back in the car, back in the spot of the original from the intro, and they're listening to "Secret of Life" by James Taylor, just sitting there, kind of
At a
reminiscing. on
lover's
their-
lane.
What was that?
I said, and they're at a lover's
Oh yes, yeah.
lane. Which I just love
And
that that's where their like
So
hangout
the
spot
weird
is.
thing about that is I could have sworn those scenes at the end were always them sitting on the roof of the house.
No,
And
it's not.
it being in the car really threw me off.
To be honest, I mean, I don't.
That's such
Maybe
a
it is
later
like
I don't
thing.
remember much about the show, and for the intended purpose of our format, anyways, we're only kind of
Yeah.
thinking about this. I guess it doesn't truly matter,
This-
but
I don't know what this was a tough one for me. with,
yeah, but
things
they
in
were
the
reflecting on
future,
their
but-
time on Earth, and Dick clearly likes being here, and he wants to stay longer, and he's going to try to convince them to be there probably longer than what was necessary for their mission, because obviously he's taken a liking to Mary Albright, and Tommy accuses him of probing her, and then that's when he said that he only scanned her for a bit. So I would assume that probing meant intercourse, but just scanning would be I don't know, but
Yeah, that's what they
Because
leave
more
you
questions,
intentionally
lead to
vague.
more and more questions.
But yeah, so he wants to stay longer and learn about people in general, and questions why do they call it the human race? Like is someone going to win or something to that nature? Was the final
I think that's my favorite line of the whole episode.
and then
Like they call it the human race. Do they think someone's gonna win? That's
yeah, exactly.
that's some smart writing.
Yeah.
And then I think it ended with I can't remember who said, but one of them had said, yeah, he probed her all right, and that was it. And that
French
was,
Stewart, I think.
and that was the close of the episode. So so that's the entirety of the first episode. Brains and Eggs, was it? Third Rock from the
Toss
Sun.
salad and scrambled eggs, I believe.
Brains and Eggs is the name of the episode.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
god! I really like. I didn't even realize Joe made a joke. I thought he was correct.
yeah.
Right over my head.
So on that note, is anything else you guys wanted to touch on about this episode, this show in general?
Gordo.
I don't think anything that we can't. Yeah, that I wouldn't say in my thing. Gordo looks like he hasn't thought though.
I find it interesting though that there was a complete long silence and Gordo still rose his hand for permission to speak. There was nobody talking.
One finger in the air for no reason.
Please go on.
So this series, Third Rock from the Sun, won the most primetime Emmys in history, just so you guys know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, it changed time slots 15 times. And
Wow.
Ferg, the
Yeah.
season 2 finale is called A Nightmare on Dick Street.
Yes.
And also this show was originally on ABC and the fall lineup came out and they just didn't put it in the fall lineup. And so NBC like bought it from ABC.
And
Okay,
there's
so just out of curiosity, did it ever air on ABC or like was
No,
it
it
their
didn't
show
air.
originally?
Which is interesting too, because I wonder if you could tell the
Someone
difference
lost their job for
between
that.
formats, right? Because each network obviously has a different voice in each or whatever shows they're doing. So I'd be curious to see the season 1, or maybe even just after the first few episodes when NBC had taken control, if you could tell a difference between not the quality, but just the feel of the show, if it was any different.
Yeah, I mean,
It
some
definitely
shows
feels to me
kind
more
of
like
move
an
along
NBC
seamless.
show. Like, you think NBC always
Yeah.
had kind of edgier, funnier shows. Like they had Seinfeld, they
Honestly,
had
it feels
Cheers,
like a
they had
Fox
Parks
show
and
to
Rec,
me.
The Office.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to tell too because you can go by today's world, but it really is tough to remember specifically, from what is it, 25 years ago now, to think of when exactly programming was like from station to station. Like, I don't have a firm enough memory except for when we look back and see where things aired.
Ferg, did you say was it you who said it feels like a Fox show?
Yeah, feels like it was.
I think you're
something that
totally
would've aired
spot
Fox.
on. Yeah, we were talking about that. It seems like the kind of show that would be perfect to play right after Married with Children.
Yep.
Like you can see somebody at a bar wearing a No Ma'am t-shirt watching this, and
Because
everything
it's
seems
just
totally
too
seamless.
it's too edgy for ABC and kind of too edgy for NBC too. They push the envelope with some of these, I mean, back then it
10
was
years
different. They
later,
had-
maybe. For
Yeah, they had
NBC.
different guidelines
Yeah, I don't
back
think it was
then.
too edgy.
Well, it
Even
was
think back, like-
hypersexual. It was hypersexual in a way that maybe no show we've covered has been yet. But and more with the kind of like back end jokes too. It wasn't even like in your face. It was all the subtle jokes they kept slipping in the whole time.
Yeah, I was going to say too, there is a book that is out of print as well right now called Third Rock from the Sun, the official report on Earth by the High Commander Dick Solomon. So it's their entirety of their report released in 1997 as well. So if you wanted to, I don't know how you would even go about reading that.
That's
I'm
kind of
sure
cool
there's
though.
a Kindle. I'm sure there's a Kindle version here, but
They could probably scoop one on eBay.
Did they ever clearly
Yeah.
say what their mission on Earth is? Like, I
Not
know they're
in
trying to
this
get
episode.
information, but like,
I'm
Not in
again
this
for the
episode.
purpose of this show, who knows? Because they certainly
Yeah.
didn't talk about it here, so I don't know about long run. But for episode 1, no, we talked about it before, but they definitely left a lot more questions than answers. But
I think that's
I got a
intentional,
question:
though.
is
I
this
think that
for a
was
future
intentional.
invasion? Are they scientists? Like, they don't
Again,
really,
I think
like,
they answer.
go
I
on
think
there.
they do answer it down the line, but again, they're not going to, like Jay said earlier, they're not going to pigeonhole
Yeah.
themselves.
Just by their nature, they seem to be exploratory,
scientists,
not
yeah.
combative in any way.
I got them like almost like a biologist, almost like our like marine biologist, or
Right, yeah.
Or they study animals, so I got
It's like the SS
that they were
Enterprise,
studying
the
us like
science ship.
animals.
That's
I
exactly
mean, when
what
you
I
look
was
at
thinking.
their
Ferg.
initial mission, it kind of looked like they were here to collect data and get out of here, right? So that that's kind of what I was thinking was going on. They're just kind of trying to learn about everywhere, and they were just going to move from place to place. But anyways, yeah, that's the whole episode. So I think at this point there's nothing really left to do but go around and do the green light or cancel. So let's just go around in the order that I'm seeing you in. So Gordo, I'm going to start with you. Third Rock from the Sun, green light or cancel?
Oh, green light, 100%. This show was funny. My man French Stewart is in it. The concept is interesting enough. I will say that my issues with the show were, I'm sure, get addressed down the line as to how they got there, what their mission is, and so forth and so on. But I'm glad that they don't answer all of that in this episode, because that gives me a reason to want to keep watching and wanting to see these guys' interactions. Green light from me.
Joe, on to you.
There's a lot of fun stuff in this. It's not a bad show. I love the whole cast, but this whole thing is a mess. There's way more questions than answers. The funny didn't make up for the fact that every time they did something funny, I was like, wait, where are we? What are we doing? How many times? How many days? I wouldn't say that I would never watch this show again. I think that I would, but I think there's probably a reason that I only watched it sparingly in syndication and never really grabbed me. I like everybody in it, but Captain Greenlight's going to give a red light on this one. I'm not going to renew.
All right. Joe finally says no to something. Ferg, on to you. Green light or cancel Third Rock from the Sun?
This is a tough one for me. Like Joe said, it really is a mess at times. And I have canceled shows for less. There's just something about it. I got to give it a green light. I love the cast. Gordo, who like says no to a bunch of shows, the fact that French Stewart brought him so much joy. I mean, that's what you want in a pilot, right? So, green light for me.
Nick, on to you.
This was a tough one because I do agree with Joe. There were a lot of occasions where I've just felt confused and I thought I missed something. And having said that, though, I thought it was funny. And I think what the reason I'm going to greenlight it is because it's different than a lot of the shows at this time. Everything was the family sitcom, right? It was just situational to each different family, but it was really the same thing. And I like that they stepped out of that box for this one. I mean, in essence, they are just a family, right? But there's so much more to it than that, than other shows. And that's what I think will keep me interested enough to want to keep seeing it. So I'm going to greenlight it.
All right. Well, so just leaving me. Yeah, I know, we kept touching on the more questions than answers, and I do certainly agree with that. Ultimately, I'm going to give it a green light. And to go with why, with all the things in mind, with that show, I think that when you deal with weird premises like that, the specifics and the science behind it and all those things aren't always super important. And it's a fun show. It's one of those shows that you don't have to overthink. You're not really supposed to overthink and analyze the way that we're doing right now in this show. It's kind of meant for light laughs and silly jokes throughout and just to keep you laughing for a half hour and then move on. Additionally, I think with me in rating, one of the main things is always, how much do I want to watch episode 2 when I'm done? And I did find myself when this episode concluded, I wanted to keep watching and found it like, I got to turn it off because I can't right now. So that's kind of a big sticking point with me. And that definitely happened this time when I watched it. So I am giving it the green light, and that's 4 out of 5.
That's
And
super strange that Joe is the only red light. Yeah.
Never thought we would have an
Yeah.
episode where only one person canceled and it would be Joe. I never thought it would happen, but here we
And
are.
last week I was the only green light.
Right. So it is
Raymond.
2 weeks ago. It was Raymond. 2 weeks ago we did Raymond.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Last
Last
week was
week
My
was
Name is Earl.
My Name is Earl.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. It's been a crazy month
Big
for me.
dumb.
So, but anyways, that's it for this week, guys. Third Rock from the Sun. Congratulations. 80% thumbs up here. You are being greenlit and you live on to see another day. Sorry, Joe has such an angry, perverted heart. So moving
Don't
on.
ever use a flashlight around Joe.
Yeah,
Please
apparently, yeah.
keep your flashlights far away from Joe. But that's all the time we have this week. If you want to watch Third Rock from the Sun, you can go to Peacock, and that's where you can find all seasons available for streaming. If you want to keep up with us, go to S1E1pod.com. That'll take you to all the links for our social media. It's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Also has links to where you can listen to us, like Spotify, Apple, Google, everywhere. So give it a look, S1E1pod.com. Additionally, if you can rate, subscribe, review, do everything on all those, it means the world to us. It does a lot for us. Spread the word.
Seriously,
Really
please do
appreciate-
that.
We really appreciate all the
Hugely
feedback.
helpful.
It's been very helpful. Everyone who's reached out, it's been really flattering to us to hear people actually enjoying the show. It means a lot. So that's it. We'll catch you next week. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
I can't see
I hate
through
the
my
word
eyelids.
moist.
Can I take your jacket?